All right, we're coming off a win, a close win in Columbus, Missouri, a 1 point victory, 55-54, on a night where the college basketball gods said chaos, on a night where college basketball gods said, you're not going to make a single shot all night. The college basketball god said, you got too big. You're number one. I don't think so. We're taking you down in Columbus, Missouri. One man stood up to the college basketball gods and said, no way. KD Johnson freaking knocked out the gods of college basketball and said, we refuse to lose.
There was one guy, and I texted one of my other friends after the game. I said, there's one guy. Like we have this KD, we always joke about having a KD podcast separately because he is such an interesting figure. On nights like tonight, man, you don't trade a guy like that for anyone. He's the only guy who is unaffected by everything else going on. He had multiple runs in this game that were fantastic. He is the obvious and clear. I haven't even looked at the stat sheet. I don't care what it says. The obvious MVP of this game is KD Johnson. He's the only reason that he's not the only. He's not the only reason.
KD. I wish it was an Auburn so everybody would chant his name because it is the most obvious MVP we've had maybe all year. KD freaking Johnson, our little psychopath, refused to lose. This team had the worst game it's had all year. Such a trash game. So bad. And KD Johnson, 2 or 3 times this game just said, screw it. We're not losing. I'm doing this, and put the entire team on his back. Everybody, several players played really badly. They just didn't go in tonight. That's just how it is in college basketball away. But KD Johnson, man, he just drove that ball. The kind of plays that sometimes in a game where everyone else is playing well, we get upset because he forces the issue. Tonight, he forced the issue, and thank God, because he was the only reason we won this game.
We'll have plenty of time to talk about the bad. That's going to be a lot of this podcast. But let's talk about the good. I mean, in the first half, he made some crucial plays. He was confident. You could tell his energy and his confidence was helpful. Second half, it got real tight. He was out. There was a weird sequence in the second half where the starters played the first 7 minutes because they couldn't get to that TV timeout after the first 4. And it threw everything off. Like KD was out from 13 minutes to go till 6. And we'll talk about the kind of some of the struggles, but like him not being on the floor really mattered. And when he got back on the floor, it really opened some things up. Wendell did some good things too. But at the end, I just want to go through the 3-play sequence, right? Auburn's down 51-50 with less than 2 minutes to go, I believe. And he just flings himself into a defender he totally initiates the contact. If I was a Missouri fan, they called a foul on it. It was an and one. He makes the free throw. I would have been livid. It's a terrible foul call, but he gets it because, don't you notice in this game, he got the calls every time he went to the basket. First half, second half. So he got the calls. He hit the shot.
Two big ones early in the first, and then a couple down the stretch. And then
I want to point out his Sorry, I know I'm going long here. Defensively, the next possession, Auburn's up 2. It's like, all right, we got to get, being up 2 in college basketball is the worst feeling ever because the 3-point line is staring you in the face. And he makes a great recovery off his man to slap the ball out and get another steal. I don't know how many they gave him. He should have had 4 or 5 tonight. And he forces a steal. He goes down the other end. The possession isn't great. He gets the ball at the end of the shot clock, goes to the basket, pump fake, kind of waits patiently, hits a tough layup. Auburn's up 5. They end up, we'll talk about the ending, but KD made all the plays. And the last play, I'm so proud of him, whether it was intentional or not. When, Auburn had the last possession of the game, as it turned out, there was like a 4-second differential. KD shot it with 0.3 seconds left, and it bounced around on the rim, and Walker got a touch. And that's why Auburn ends up winning this game without having to take Missouri with a half-court shot to try to beat us. So he did everything perfectly in the last 4 minutes. As much crap as we give him sometimes, tonight is KD's night. He saved at the winning streak. Number 1, you don't want to lose the first time out, like Tennessee did, by the way, when Bruce was there when they were number 1. So just a great performance by KD. We can't say enough good things.
you would think that if you're going to have a game where KD's the only guy, I mean, we can talk about some other guys that did some hustle plays and different things, but KD was the only guy that played his game tonight. He would say, like, one of the unanimous MVPs. He could have a game at any point where he scores 30 points. He could shoot 6 threes in a game and dunk the ball on some people and have some great hamburger plays. None of that really happened. What happened was you strip away the Walker Kessler lobs. You strip away the Jabari Smith 3-pointers and good jump shots. You strip away any kind of Flanagan good drives. You strip away maybe an efficient Zep. You strip away Jaylen making much. Anyway, you strip away everything we think we're good at. And what was left that didn't get stripped away was KD Johnson. He did the stuff we're used to him doing, driving the ball on the guys, initiating contact, getting the foul calls, made a good 3. None of it was necessarily something we haven't seen KD do. And honestly, in a different game, none of this stuff that KD did was like mind-blowing. He didn't have any like the best play he had all night was we were down 1 point. He went down there, threw his body against the other guy, made it, and then went and made the free throw. That was the biggest play all night. We've seen him do that many times. That was not some like, oh my God, something that KD's never done before. He didn't hit an enormous amount of threes. He didn't have an enormous amount of like hamburglar type steals. He just stayed in his game when everyone else faltered. And when everybody else faltered that badly, KD Johnson's game looks mind blowing. And that's the kind of stuff that this team is so good. This team has so many good dudes that Johnson can do that in a different game. We don't really think about it. Like when this team was bad, go back, flash 6, 7, 8 years ago, pre-Bruce, early Bruce, KD Johnson's our guy. If you put KD Johnson on those teams, like Kareem Canty was a great guy in some of those past teams that we beat Kentucky with one time. KD Johnson would be doing that same stuff. Like we remember him, he was the only guy on that team. KD Johnson has to play with these other dudes, and so he ends up being the 3rd or 4th guy or whatever. Man, you can't say enough about a team like this, number 1 in the country. We talk about how we keep collecting different ways to win. Holy crap, this one was one. We just picked up a holographic Mewtwo card or some other super rare collectible. This is winning when you score 55 on the road. Are you kidding me?
You might remember that USF game that was super ugly in the non-conference and we couldn't shoot. And eventually we had our little run. We never had a run in this game, really. And really, it speaks so much to KD's. I love that quote. I'm going to go back to it from a few weeks ago. Swagger is hard to guard. And it's so true. He has that swagger. He wants the ball. We've seen him make how many game-winning plays? I mean, we have to acknowledge, like, Jabari's made some really big plays, but KD has made the game-sealing, game-winning plays when it's come down to the final possession. We haven't had many of those, and he's been the guy almost every time, if my memory serves.
And it works almost every time. It's been really crazy because if you like picked a guy on this team that I want the ball in his hands at the end, it's going to be Wendell or Jabari probably. Maybe if we can find a way to work with the Kessler, he's done such a good job. At this point, do we stop thinking that way? And we think end of game, it's KD because he's the freaking man. I'm trying so hard not to cuss here because he's impressed me so much. KD.
It still scares me.
Clutch. He's got the clutch gene, right?
He does have the clutch gene. It does scare me a little bit. You know, I just have this vision of like Auburn's in a 2nd round game in the NCAA tournament against an 8 seed, and it's Auburn's down 1, and KD waves off Wendell and Jabari and says, "I'm gonna do this."
You worry because at this point I'm okay with it. Honestly, we've seen enough times. You just worry it starts too early, right? It started at the right time tonight.
Yes.
KD told himself, "Screw it. These guys have not done it all night. For the last 2 minutes, it's my game." And honestly, if you told me he was going to do that, I would have said, "Do it." These guys, the rest of everybody else is not doing it. The problem is we're afraid that it's going to be a game where it's like tied 80-80. Everyone's playing pretty decently, and then KD decides with like a 3-minute mark that's KD's game. Luckily, that it hasn't mattered. It has not bitten us this year. But like, man, thank God for KD, man. I'm gonna buy a freaking jersey. I'm in love with a man, and his name's KD.
we've never. I mean, I've made the Malik Dunbar much better Malik Dunbar comparison. That's the closest thing I can come to, but that's not even fair. Like this is.
I don't it now, right? He is his own freaking man at this point.
Yes. I think if you had to make a comparison, that's the one for an Auburn, like from the last 10 years. But like, there's nobody like him. And honestly, you watch college basketball around, there's a lot of interesting players, interesting personalities. You just can't convince me there's another guy that's more strange, for lack of a better word. But the synergy on this team is just terrific. And I love, there's so many things I loved as in the ugliness of this game that we'll get to. And a lot of it, I think, stems from this spirit. Like KD brings a lot of it. Jabari in his own way brings a lot of it. Wendell brings a lot of it as a small guy. Like, and those personalities together, they just don't quit. They find ways to win. It can be ugly. It can be, we faced a ton of adversity on the road. We've seen it at Ole Miss and other places. It's going to keep happening. We talk about it, college basketball on the road. You look around the nation, it happens all the time. Alabama lost in this gym. We very well could have lost tonight. So anyway, I'm really happy we won. It's a great, like, now I feel like we can officially let the number one, like, okay, we're number one. We survived that
the
first
curse.
game.
It just feels like we punched the curse in the face, right?
Yes.
Like there's the curse of being number one, the pressure. And honestly, the pressure cooker of tonight and still pulling out the win, it feels like we busted it right open, right? Like we keep talking about we have to lose. There's a pressure. How do we be a team with a target on its back? How do you, man, you go home as a player on this team, they're going to be like, screw the curse, screw the pressure. We're going to find a way to win it every single time. Like,
So let's talk about like some of the funny pieces of I just think it's hilarious that Auburn won this game.
Before we do that, I want to say also, we mentioned, and you mentioned specifically several times, that KD is going to win us some games down the stretch, sometime in March or sometime at some point, like when we were the most down on KD. But KD came in as like a neutral, like, I hope he's a good player. Then it went, wow, we have a star. Can't believe we got this guy. Where is this guy coming from? Oh my God, best player ever. To, oh no, he's doing all the things we were afraid he's going to do. So down on him. Oh my gosh. We just hope he can figure it out. We hope that Bruce figures it out, but he might still win us some games. He'll get it together. To this, where it's like, he has turned it back around. He might go back downhill again. We don't know, but we absolutely love that for right now, he just won us this game, and he played great in the game before that too. And he's been trending upward like this.
He has. I think there's going to be some roller coaster with him just by his nature and by this team. That, like you said, they don't need him to do this every night. You know, they don't. This is the first game in a while, if I remember, he shot double-digit field goals, like attempted. But this was a game where I didn't hate hardly any of them. I mean, because there was nothing else positive going on offense for the most part. He was great, man, and it's so refreshing. Just for me as somebody, and I do want to point out, I watch for this stuff. I try to notice when guys, in my opinion, like blow defensive assignments or, just fall asleep at times defensively. I didn't see one time all game where KD was a culprit defensively. And for me, I'm sure I may have missed something, but like,
I was watching also for that exact same thing, because early on in the game, it was kind of like Ole Miss a little bit, where they weren't missing, but also we were leaving them open.
Yep.
It's like 50-50 kind of thing. Like a team, you kind of expect, even if you leave them open, a team like Missouri is going to miss maybe every once in a while. They were hitting everything while we were also leaving them. So I was watching, like, who is getting these guys open? Why are they getting open? I would say it didn't feel like it was KD's fault. Also, if you're going to look for a thing in this defense, he made a lot of gambles on guys that were kind of backing people down. And that's partly because they had a really good strategy of backing Wendell and KD down. I mean, they would work. If they found a bigger guy with Wendell or KD on them, they were working it. They would let it slow down and move the guy all the way around and back him all the way in. About that time, either KD or Wendell or somebody would try to like collapse on them so they couldn't get an easy two. So that's the only times that like they got a little wonky, that KD sometimes would crash a little too early and leave a guy open. But later down the stretch, after that first run, it didn't really matter because both teams' offenses played so badly, and the defenses turned it up too. But still,
you live. I like, for KD, I live with his gambles for the most part, because he does get so many steals and he is such an active off-ball defender. Like, I still go back. What game was that? Was that last game where somebody's on the ground with the ball? And so many times you see somebody like try to get a jump ball or like roll on the ground. No, KD just like looks down, rips the ball out, and goes on the fast break really fast. So I'm cool with
strength, right? Honestly, if you go back to some of the stuff in this game, there were a couple jump balls that it came down to the fact that when KD does it, he rips it out before they can call a jump ball on it or foul or anything. In this game, there was 2 or 3 of them where other players tried to do the same thing, and they called jump ball like, I don't know, 3 or 4 times tonight. They called a foul on Wendell that was bull crap, where he just reached down and grabbed it. But KD in all those plays, he's also he's so squat and strong that he also can like bend down and like get in weird angles and still like wrench things out while other people kind of need a certain angle to get the full strength. But like, it's weird, man. KD is. I have never seen a guy like KD. He is just. And in other sports, they call people little balls of hate or like a ball of knives or whatever. KD's kind of like that. He's like he's dense, right?
Little ball of hate. That's close to another sport reference there.
I know. I don't want to bring up again.
So I did just 2 more things on KD and I'm done. You can talk about anything.
This is a KD podcast. We're switch it up. This is a KD podcast. It's not going back. It's staying KD. You stumbled upon the Patreon KD podcast.
No.
He forced it. He forced this issue, right? KD forced us to turn into a KD podcast.
He wanted it. He wanted the KD podcast to happen. I watch for him to be disciplined in the half court on defense. And I really feel like he's making progress on that. And by the way, we haven't pointed out one of the best plays. I think he turned it over right after, which is typical, but they threw a deep pass and he went straight a position that defends passes in another sport in the air, leaping with 2 hands and just comes down with it. And it's like, you watch him do certain things and it's just so different.
He made a play before that, right? He had made something happened and maybe he made a shot before that. Maybe I think he made a shot maybe before that.
Yeah.
And then sprinted down the court and the other team threw it up. And I just knew it from like where KD was, like at half court even. You were like, yes. And KD just turns it up another gear, goes up there, like grabs that ball like another sport. And you just knew it was going to happen. KD was going to get that ball. There was no way the other guy was ever going to get that ball.
He hit a 3 right in that dude's face, played as good a defense against him as he could. He nails it. Bruce always talks about like, he's going to take some shots that make you kind of, He's been back.
Maybe that's what it is, right? We go up and down with him, right? He's making his in-your-face threes. And so we're like, yeah.
I'm still not.
To a stretch where he missed his made it in-your-face threes. We were like, no.
I'm not saying I don't like to play the result. So like, I don't like that shot. But if you're going to take it, and if you're going to have the freedom in Bruce's offense to take it, let's make some. And it's a lot better when you make 1 or 2 of those, for sure.
It looks great in a game like this where everybody else sucks. In other games where everybody else is playing well and there's open shots to be shot from guys that can make them, then it's a bad shot. So it's tough to know when that game's going to happen too, But we can talk about some stats maybe, like some team stats that tell the story a little bit. The biggest one is probably 30% from the field, 21% from 3, 55 points to 54 points. It was just bad, man. And it wasn't like awful bad. It felt like it avalanched a little bit. We had some shots that went kind of in and out. It felt like they were not bad shots. They looked good and they just kind of went in and out and just didn't work out. And then it kind of just avalanched that we could not seem to get the ball to go down. We missed some not straight up dunks, but like at least an alley-oop, maybe 1 or 2, where I was like, wow. I think it got maybe the players' heads a little bit too, that they just weren't going down. And then it just got worse. Some of the shots got even worse. Flanagan started the game with an air ball 3, I believe, or early on in the game. And we had a couple other bad bricks from 3. The biggest one is that Jabari shot awful. And I was totally down all game long for him to continue shooting. He has not had a game like this all year. He might not have another game like this again all year, you hope, in an Auburn uniform. But so you were like, just keep shooting. It was going to happen. And about 3 minutes left, maybe 4 minutes left, he hit a jumper and he went, okay, now we're getting together. I think at the same time, the next play, maybe we got a Kessler lob, which we hadn't had all game either. And we said, okay, maybe we're like getting it going. Nope, we were not getting it going. We came back and like missed 2 or 3 threes in a row. And just bad shooting tonight.
Shooting's contagious. If you've ever played basketball, you know how this works. When you're on a team and you kind of look around and you're dude, right? We talk about how Jabari has kind of he's the alpha in terms of everybody knows now how good he is on this team. And when you see your guy 1 for 13 to start the game, and you see your oldest kind of veteran Flanagan 1 for 6 with 4 turnovers in the first half, which we'll talk about him more later. When you start seeing this stuff, Walker struggled. He missed a few kind of closer in shots. Cambridge couldn't get the ball to go, and bless his heart, we'll talk about him later. It does become contagious and everybody tightens up, and it's hard to resist that. Bruce's teams usually do a great job of resisting that. But for some reason tonight, and Missouri has a lot. I want to get into some of the stuff later about Missouri. Missouri did a terrific job of making us uncomfortable in this game. But how do you win a game when you shoot 30%, you go 6 for 28 from 3, you leave multiple front end free throws you miss, and take away 2 free throws from your score? And we'll talk about how you win, but we just got completely outshot in this game on the road. And I know some of our pregame notes discussed that, but it's about as bad as we can look offensively with this group, I think.
55 points. We won that USF game. We scored 58-52. This one's 55-54. So this is the worst offense performance we had all year. It's tough to win away. We've talked about it 1,000 times. We didn't think it'd be this tough to win away. 55-54. What?
Or did you? You said earlier today this is the ultimate trap game for Reed. We'll talk about reasons why as we go on.
Number one team, and you're going on the road in the SEC to Missouri, and it felt like even fans. I mean, I think there's probably a certain percentage of the fans that got really excited for that the Kentucky game, that didn't even know this game was tonight. I mean, we're super fans. We have a podcast, and I was like, "When's this game again?" And it snuck up on me, man. Even this afternoon, I was like, "Oh yeah, that's tonight." That's how sudden this game felt. So we wondered if the energy was going to come. Both of us separately on our pregame notes wondered, as our very first pregame note, can we bring the energy early? And we did not really. I mean, it wasn't awful, but they brought the energy compared to what we brought like they came out as the aggressors, and we definitely didn't. In the first part of this game, looked like it was going to be a semi-normal game. People were running back and forth and making shots and everything. So I don't know what happened in the second half. We scored in the second half 24 points. They scored 23. This game was freaking close, man. 31-31 in the first and 24-23 in the second. Both teams turned the defense up, especially our team. We can talk about that maybe. But the defense got turned way up. Jabari had a god-awful game on offense. And some other more diva-type players that have the number one ranking that might be drafted number one would just sit back on their laurels and say, I'm going to make a shot eventually, or it's not my night. He got low, and he played some great defense. His blocks have really turned up. His post defense is getting to a pretty crazy level. Like we talked about before the game started, Cardwell has the number 3 blocks in the SEC. It's Kessler number 1, Cardwell number 3. If Jabari is playing defense like this, how many blocks did Jabari end up with? 2 tonight, but it feels like he's really turned it up a ton in post defense. And he can play defense anywhere. I get excited when I see him one-on-one with the guy, and that guy's trying to drive the ball at this point. I'm saying, great. Several times late, the guy that was on Jabari was driving the ball, and I said, great. That's a great matchup. I love that Jabari's guarding this guy, not Wendell or, I don't know, somebody else out there. So defense turned it up for sure.
He's a terrific on-ball defender. He struggles off the ball occasionally. I think that's just transitioning to college. But yeah, I don't want to gush on this too bad, but the only reason you win a game like this, we can talk about KD being the only reason. No, KD's not the only reason we won this game. We sat our butts down on defense for Auburn had at least 2, I want to say maybe 3, 4 or 5 minute scoring droughts in this game out of a 40-minute game. You do the math on that. Auburn was not scoring 3 different periods of this game at all. And the only way you don't get blown out of the gym is by playing great defense. And I thought in the second half, our defense was as good as I've seen it all year. And it's a response to the situation they were in. That's why I'm so impressed with this group. It was as bad as it can get offensively. And the defensive effort was there from everybody. It started with Zepp on that first possession. He gets a steal. He knocks down a 3. And you feel like maybe we're going to, but it just never happened. The run never happened. But man, how many possessions did Jabari sit? Kobe Brown is their best player. He is potentially an NBA or overseas professional guy. And he had 8 points. And
he was going to foul him out for a minute there.
And he was initiating offense all game. And it was Jaylen and Jabari just consistently shutting him down. I thought everybody, Flanagan was terrific. As bad as he was on offense, Flanagan was as engaged and aggressive and physical as a defender like he was a year ago, honestly. And I love that part. Cambridge was terrific defensively. Zepp did his thing. Kessler maybe didn't have the blocks, but I thought he was still effective. They did some things to kind of bother him. I just thought defensively, you hold that team to 54 on the road when you can't buy a shot Like that says so much about the maturity of this team. And I just thought they made their halftime adjustments to what Missouri was doing, and it was lights out. I mean, there was very rare. There were a couple possessions where somebody kind of fell asleep, but like we have no chance, no prayer of winning without that.
Defense travels. You know, we always talk about it as a thing, and the defense travels just like the USF game. Defense travel. Going away in college basketball, it's just part of the sport. It's part of how young these guys is. It's part of like, you know, in the NBA, they play so many games that some of these away games, like they might play 2 or 3 times away or something like that. Here you get that one chance to play at Missouri and you just don't seem to get it going that one night. Same with USF. But if you can play defense that keeps the other team to 54, all of a sudden you're winning the game, 55-54. I'm going to keep saying that score because it's freaking nuts that we won that game. And if you saw slightly earlier in the podcast on YouTube, you would have saw my face go like this because I was shocked when I was looking down the stat sheet when Matt was talking. I can't hold it in anymore. Devin Cambridge, 9 offensive rebounds. 9, not rebounds, 9 offensive rebounds. And 2 or 3 of those ended up with a foul. He was getting so many through. They kept fouling him, and it was in huge moments. I mean, every moment's huge when you win a game 55-54. But we had several offensive rebounds. He went out and got fouled. He didn't make his free throws, which really sucked. But it was still huge to keep those possessions going and to not give them another possession.
I've never, ever seen this where they were all offensive. He had 9 rebounds total.
0 defensive rebounds.
So just I've never and maybe he had. I want to say they were all in the second half. I mean, maybe there was 1 or 2 in the first half. I don't remember. But I've never seen a big guy get 7 offensive rebounds in a game. Hardly. I mean, that is it. It's absurd. And Bruce, that's the only guy. That's the only player individually. And he mentioned KD, but like those are the 2 guys he mentioned, and that was like next level effort. Obviously, it stinks that he missed 2 front ends of 1-and-1s where he could have had 4
big moments.
but he had that. He had the alley-oop dunk. He was terrific defensively.
He got his. Wendell didn't get his, but Devin Cambridge got his.
But just man,
he went really off. He went off from a hustle perspective.
Yes.
Like, you know, people go off from points or 3-point line. He went off from hustle perspective, and a big part of the reason is because Flanagan had a really bad game. Sadly, everyone knows on this podcast how big I'm into Flanagan. So for me to come on this podcast and talk greats about Cambridge, my friend Ben Young, shout out, said, I want to hear any more Cambridge slander. And I said, you can't muzzle me. Well, guess what, Ben? I am shouting the praises of Cambridge right now. Flanagan came out, had a bad game, and I was texting Madison that people like Cambridge is going to get some solid minutes. I gave it to the 3rd possession on Flanagan to say if he has another bad possession, you're going to see some minutes from Cambridge, and that's what happened. Flanagan played badly. Cambridge didn't, you know, the stereotype of Cambridge is that he can go off from 3, he can get those alley oops. Like that was kind of like if you're going to say you're going to go off from Cambridge, that's what you're going to think is going to happen. A bunch of alley oops, a bunch of 3s. No, man, he just played good defense. He crashed the boards. That's kind of what we've been asking for out of him, right? Is that you're a big athletic guy, go crash the boards, go play hard defense. You're not some great 3-point shooter. Go make it happen in other aspects of the game. And he did. And you absolutely love how many times we've seen that this year from a bench guy. These bench guys should be starters on crappier SEC teams, but they're coming in, and when their moment comes, they're shining. Cardwell shined in that Bama game. Chris Moore shined in that South Carolina game. Cambridge is having his night, and it doesn't have to be a star 3-point alley-oop night. He's starred in offensive rebounds. That's the kind of team that wins a championship, that has guys on the bench that can come in and do something like that.
It's just so cool to see him develop, right? Because he was a bad defender 2 years ago. I remember he was really bad, and I think part of it he graduated early and did the whole thing. But like he has just gotten so much better, and it's a great point. Like he's finding ways. He found ways to do something that no one else on this team was either able or willing or had the opportunity to do. And he got to play. I mean, he played 19 minutes tonight, more than Jaylen Williams, right behind Wendell Green, because we'll talk about him later, but like he played a lot, and it's because he played that whole stretch in the second half because he was getting all these rebounds. And if you want to zoom out, 9 from Cambridge, I've never seen this. 25 offensive rebounds for this Auburn team. We out-rebounded them by 10, and that is a physical, big team. Maybe not big at the center spot in the power forward, but like they're just big as a team. We'll Talk about
You know
that.
what helps getting all these offensive rebounds now? I think because I was shocked because I think
Missing shots.
Yeah, I think you called it out. I think you did the same thing I did when you looked down the offensive rebound board and saw that Walker Kessler also had 7 offensive rebounds. And you said, how did he have 7? How did Cambridge have 9? We missed so many freaking shots that's how rebound. It wasn't as impressive as usual because usually when that happens, they put the ball right back up and you kind of remember it's like a thing where it was tough in there. Even when they got the offensive rebounds, it was tough.
This is why I love this game so much. I told you before we started, this is going to be like a nerd fun podcast. This is hilarious. I've just never seen this. 25, first of all, to address offensive rebounds. Yeah, you can say it's because we missed a lot of shots. You know what it also is? That those rebounds could go to the other team and you don't get extra shots and you shoot this same percentage and you score 42 points. That easily could have happened. But 25 offensive rebounds, guess how many points we got off those?
My ESPN says we had 26. You said you got 25 over there?
It doesn't matter. I'm talking about second chance points.
How many?
Off of 25 offensive rebounds, we got 7 points.
Wow. You usually think you would almost always have more points than offensive rebounds, right? So you assume that more than 50% of those are going to end up in points.
Right. Missouri had 10 offensive rebounds and had 12 second chance points. So they out second chance.
They had more. We had that many offensive rebounds and they had more second chance points. I'm going to stop looking at offensive rebounds because it really comes down to second chance points, right?
Well, yes. But I do want to say, look, how does Auburn win the game? That's going to be one of our themes of this podcast. Well, Auburn shot a way worse percentage, but if you look at the field goal number, Auburn made 1 more shot than Missouri in this game. How did they do that? It's because they got 18 more shots than Missouri. That's again, so it may not feel like you're getting all the second chance points, but what you're doing is you're keeping the ball in your hands, you're getting opportunities at the free throw line, and you're getting more shots up. Ultimately, it's a game about who can get more shots up, and Auburn did.
Another interesting one that I thought you were about to say, because that's why I brought up what ESPN has. So ESPN has 26 offensive rebounds for Auburn. Missouri had 27 defensive rebounds. We had 1 less offensive rebound than they had defensive rebound. That is bizarre. This whole thing, you said you were going to nerd out. This game is freaking bizarre.
And offensive rebounding is one of our worst categories, by the way, coming into this game. We are not a good offensive rebounding team for our size. So again, it just shows that the depth of our abilities on this team. Like when we needed it, we can get 25 offensive rebounds apparently on the road. And even if we didn't convert them into points, that says something that's so different than how we've played every other game.
We can talk a little bit too here. We were talking about Cambridge there, and I want to get my spiel in. I mean, at this point, we'll start probably going down the line a little bit, some of this stuff, but Alan Flanagan had a really awful game. The whole game, there's some weird minutes in this game. We had Wendell Green went out with an injury at one point to his knee. It was luckily he went down, and everybody, I'm sure, it's getting to a point in the season where it was one thing when we had Flanagan out for a while and we kind of dealt with it. Now we know what we need, and Wendell went down holding his knee, and you're just, every time somebody does that, you're worried. Luckily, they showed the replay, and it was a banged up knee. And you're like, usually if that happens,
so bad,
it hurts.
That hurts.
It hurts. But your guy's probably going to come back. And luckily he did, and we really need it. That also brings up a weird thing with Zep Jasper. He was gone for super big portions of this game, a big defensive game. There was big gaps. I was like, where is Zep at? And maybe it's because the offense was so bad that we felt like we really needed Wendell in for that after he came back. I'm sure there was a gap there when Wendell was out and Zep was back in. But I guess that's what I'm kind of getting at. I guess we don't talk about Flanagan right now necessarily, but the minutes were weird. 19 minutes for Cambridge, 22 for Wendell when he's usually higher up, 32 for Jabari Smith when he was having the absolute worst night of his life, but his defense was so locked in, and we just kept, I think Bruce probably was thinking to himself, this guy's gonna get it eventually. I'm gonna leave him in and tell him to keep shooting because we need somebody to do it. And if anybody's gonna do it, it's gonna be him. And he just never did get it going.
He did hit a big shot late after starting 1 for 13. He hit a big shot in the last.
He hit a big jumper that I thought for sure was gonna bring the floodgates down. We've seen him in a couple other games do that, like the UConn game. I think it was at least one more where he didn't play a good start and finished well. And it didn't happen in this game.
Man, there's so many. Let me nerd out on a couple stats, and then we can go player by player.
Maybe we'll do pregame notes after you stat out a little.
Okay, stat out, pregame notes, players. Okay. Just wanted to point out our consistent theme. We're trying to make you smarter here on the podcast. How does Auburn win a game where the offense is this bad and everybody's off and everything's bad on the road? You won rebounding by 10. We just talked about the offensive rebounds, and we won turnovers. Despite Flanagan's 4 in the first half, we only had 10 the whole game, including that. So we forced 13. That's another, again, that's how you get 18 more shots than the other team. Our bench points were way down because nobody was scoring, I guess, but that to be even with Missouri is really disappointing. I think that's part of the reason we just didn't get that scoring punch from Wendell, mainly. I think he hit the first 2 threes of the game for us. Like, I want to say he scored our first 6 points maybe, and then he didn't hit a shot the rest of the game.
He started off like the kind of game you expect from Wendell, and it just like everything went downhill. It kind of like, honestly, the whole game was like that. The beginning of the game looked like a normal game, and after like the first 5, 6, 7 minutes, everything just went to crap on both sides.
It's just so rare that you win games. We got outshot from the field. We got outshot from 3. We got outshot from the free throw line, percentage and total. We did win 1 more shot than them and 1 more 3 than them because of the volume of the offensive rebounds. And then I just want to throw out, to set up our players here in a minute. Some of these numbers. Wendell Green missed his last 7 shots. Jabari was 2 of 15. Flanagan was 1 of 6. Didn't take a shot in the second half. That was all in the first half, I believe. Jaylen was 1 for 4. Just a lot of. Cambridge was 2 for 8 on all those putbacks. He kept trying to get his rebound and put it back.
It was brutal. He kept getting the offensive rebounds, and he just could not go back up with it.
Oh, man. Anyway.
It's usually so easy, right? You get the offensive rebound, and it's usually right back up. And there was a couple times that he got the offensive rebound, and I said, don't even go up. You're like surrounded by like 3 guys. Like, just hold on.
We are overlooking one major thing that I think is hilarious. I saw this, and I could not believe it in the flow of the game. But Kessler had a double-double with 13 and 12, and I don't know how he had 13 points. Like, I'm trying to rack my brain. I don't remember most of them. But anyway.
They weren't the way he got his lob eventually. That's something kind of late in the game that we really needed it. I think it was the same thing where Jabari hit a jumper, and then somewhere in that same vicinity, we hit the lob to Kendall.
Kessler.
The anxiety from this game has racked my brain a little bit here, and I'm drinking my unofficial sponsor, Gosling's rum over here, so maybe I'm getting a little crazy. But and we got the lob with Kessler. I said, all right, finally. It took until 4 or 5 minutes left in this game. We're gonna break the dam or whatever. It just didn't happen. That was our one moment in the whole game. Those 2 back and forth.
But what were the other 4 shots Kessler made throughout the game? I don't remember.
Free throws. I remember.
3 free throws and a lob. I remember those. That's 5 points. Where are the other 8?
He missed a 3. He missed his jumper. I think he had another tough putback, maybe where Cambridge got an offensive rebound, and then Kessler got the rebound of that offensive rebound and put it back. It was every point was tough this game. And I texted Matt this, and I said, this is how it's going to be the rest of the season, isn't it? Where teams want to make the game as rough as possible, as physical as possible, and get in our heads. Early in the game, there was a weird moment where Cambridge and somebody got in a little bit of a pushing something off to the side, maybe in the first 4 or 5 minutes. That's how they want it. The students, this place was not packed. I really feel like ESPN does a weird job of mixing the sound on fans sometimes, where they just really turn the mic up on the student section and make it sound like an intense atmosphere. I do think the students got into it. In any kind of away game in the SEC. It's going to get a little crazy or whatever for us, a number 1 team, especially if they can keep in it. I have a feeling there's gonna be a couple games where we go and the student section's full and going nuts for the first bit of the game. And if we get on them early, they go study somewhere, and you have a game like this and they stick around and have a good time. In fact, someone probably ran over from the dorms at halftime when they saw how close this game was.
Well, the problem we're seeing on the road the last 2 is you give teams like Ole Miss and Missouri life by leaving them open and letting them hit open shots. And now that you have that 1 beside your name, oh man, you're a Missouri student and you're at this basketball game and your team's winning most of the way. And it creates a better atmosphere and that's why the start is so good. Let's go ahead and do pregame notes.
I think jumped on teams so early. The first part of the year, it really felt like that was our moves, to jump on teams early and go in this big up leads and then have to kind of go through waves after that. Last couple away games, it has been a little brutal with how we leave guys open. I don't know if they draw something up that's getting to us. It takes us time to get comfortable, or we're not bringing the energy early on. But man, this game and the Ole Miss game and maybe another game or 2, we've just left people open early.
Kentucky game too. When we started slow against Kentucky as well. That's another another double-digit comeback. I mean, let's not gloss over. We came back from
I
double
said in the
digits down.
Kentucky game to my girlfriend when we were down, I was like, no, it's not good. We're not built for that. Well, we've done it a couple of times now, haven't we? St. Louis, Ole Miss, Kentucky, Missouri. That's 4 games now that we've come back from a double-digit down deficit.
Yep.
All right, so we can get some pregame notes here. We always put them up on Instagram, so check that out if you get a chance. We forgot to do it last game. It's the only time we haven't done it. So, but it was guide our conversation. So if you want to know what to look for during the game that we're going to talk about in this podcast, get on the Instagram. I might start posting on Twitter maybe, but I don't know if it is conducive to that. But all right, here's mine. Can we bring the energy in the first half on defense? No. You're shaking your head a little bit here, but the way this game started was exactly what I was afraid was going to happen. Is they were going to hit some open shots. We were going to leave them open for shots. We weren't going to get on them early and take the crowd out of it. That's exactly what I wanted, was to come in and blitz them, take the crowd out, deal with their runs after they're already a little defeated. Not what happened. They got confident. Honestly, this game could have gone completely different if we could change some pieces around and go up 10 early instead of letting them go up 10. All of a sudden, the whole vibe of this game changes.
I agree. In the first few minutes, we did fall asleep again. I thought we adjusted quicker. I thought after that first TV timeout, I think it was 10-2 or 7-2 or something. I thought after that, defensively, we held them to 31 in the first half. It's not like it was not a bad defensive effort. I think the problem was, you have to define energy, right? Auburn was never able to get its tempo and its mentality, its mojo in this game because we couldn't make shots. And if you go think about our flying tiger Monstar runs, it's because we're alley-oop and we're hitting the logo threes. We're at fast paced, and it's just we're
doing that, and they have to turn the ball over / miss some shots. And we've let some teams early on make all their shots and turn this game into a game where we have to get into our half-court offense. If we can get some games early where they're missing their shots or they're turning the ball over, all of a sudden our offense looks a lot better too, because we're running the ball and doing stuff a little more. Our offense is just a little more what do you call it? Break. I'm missing the word right now. Help me out here.
I don't know if I can help you with that one.
Whatever. We're going on fast breaks. That's a little more of our offense. I
do think you're right though. I think we did struggle in the first few minutes again. And sometimes home teams are going to come out. If you want to get nerdy in 15 seconds, Missouri did something cool. I don't know if this was their regular lineup, but all 5 of their starters were 6'5" or taller. I mean, they were just tall. They weren't necessarily 7-footers, but you mentioned our guards being small. They kind of exploited that. And I thought they played a 5-out offense, meaning no guy in the middle to start the game, trying to drag Kessler away because they knew we were going to play man-to-man like we usually do. And it gave us some trouble until we kind of adjusted to what they were doing. So you got to give Missouri credit. They had a plan.
We could talk about that really quickly. I thought that was super interesting to watch them really try to take advantage of our mismatch. You see in the NBA all the time. It's the reason Jared Harper's never made a lineup early. And it's the reason a lot of these little guys never really make, because in the NBA, they really find a way. Maybe it's spacing because the 3-point line is slightly different. Maybe it's just the type of offenses they have in the NBA, but they really take advantage of any small guy. It feels like if you get a mismatch, it's over. They're going to make it. And they did that a lot in this game, and they really worked it more than anybody else has against us. Find that mismatch, and you watch them try to work it on Wendell and KD. I don't feel like it really went in very often. There was very few times that they were it got to him and you were afraid. You said, man, Wendell's on a big guy right now. KD's on a big guy right now. I don't remember very many of those going in. Maybe there was a couple of 3-pointers off of that kind of.
2 things. Missouri is old school. They are going to pound you. They're going to be physical. We'll talk about that in a minute, one of my notes, but I knew that was coming in a way. And they're last in the country in 3-point percentage. They are last of everyone. So part of their game.
Of all D1 teams, they're the last in the country?
343. I believe that's how many teams there are. They're 343.
Wow. I'm surprised they didn't bring that up when they were getting hotter. Okay. Man.
They did out of one of the timeouts early, and I didn't know that. But it made sense, right? That's why they're attacking those 2-point matchups, because that's probably how they've had to play when you're shooting under 30% for the season from 3.
The other pretty interesting part is when you said they had the 5-out with Kessler, bringing Kessler out. Thank God Kessler, another impressive part of Kessler's game, man. There was a time where the point guard dragged him out. I get excited when Kessler gets dragged by the point guard because it's great. I mean, they're going to keep having to learn it all year long. When they try to drive past Kessler, it didn't work out for them. It didn't happen. There was a great one in this game where the point guard really brought him out, and he went and drove past him. Kessler just blocked him. That's just how it is, because Kessler's that athletic as a 7'1" guy.
Crazy.
So it's not going to work out for him when they think that they can bring Kessler out. if you can work somebody underneath Kessler and Kessler's not down there, that works. It didn't feel like that ever happened. It felt like they tried to drive past him a couple times. It didn't work out. He's crazy athletic. And it may be another, you talk about 3-point shooting was so bad. I'm afraid, I wonder if another team can adapt this style or not. I don't know how weird 5-out is or how like obscure that is. If I'm another team, I'm trying 5-out again because it was the most desperate we looked on defense, even though we ended up only letting them score 54. Those mismatches should have been taken care of. Those times that Kessler was out of there should have been taken advantage by somebody else, and they just didn't. A better team probably would have.
I think maybe we anticipated, because if you noticed, our defense was a little what I would almost call like it was man-to-man, but it was like a muddy man-to-man. Like guys would kind of linger near the paint to kind of help a little more than you would usually see because Kessler's so good inside. Like they just trust him when the other team has a big inside and Kessler gets to hang out in there. Our guys don't even worry about it. But we did have a game plan to deal with that.
We saw some people crash for sure. We talked about that earlier. KD. Yeah. We saw Wendell and KD crash when they got mismatches, and it worked. And usually we didn't get the steals I was hoping. KD had several close ones. It looked like he was going to rip a ball out, and but it ended up usually stalling the offense for a good 5 or 6 seconds there, enough to where it completely stalled the entire possession. So it still worked. It was this close to working very well.
Yeah. Last thing on that, I just wanted to point out, I thought, I just think, what was I going to say? Man, we're both off on this podcast tonight. I'm a little.
we got flabbergasted by how weird this game was.
Oh, I was going to say, so if you watch college basketball, you get those switches, right? Like a lot of times teams are looking for matchups, but usually they're looking for the matchup like Wendell against a big guy. Like we're like, oh, Wendell's going to blow by that guy. He's going to make a pass. He's going to finish, whatever. And with our team, you're right. That doesn't work against Kessler consistently. And it's almost like Missouri took their strengths and weaknesses and said, okay, well, we're not going to try to attack Kessler necessarily. They did once or twice. But overall, we're going to try to attack the little guys, which is just old school basketball. You just don't see it very much. It's almost like the triple option. Sorry, I shouldn't make comparison. Who knows what the triple option is? I don't know. I just threw it out there. Anyway, keep going. Pre-game note.
Next pre-game note is, can the bench, besides Wendell, be a spark? I assume coming off a big game against Kentucky, playing away, maybe the starters come in a little lackadaisical, and the bench is the people that come out and say, screw it, if y'all don't want to play hard, we'll play hard. And to an extent, it happened. The offense didn't happen. But Cambridge, man, I absolutely love. We talked about it already. We won't talk about it too much longer. That these bench guys, when they have their moments, they've taken advantage of it. And that's all you can ask for some of these guys. And I'm loving it. Cambridge took advantage of his moment, got those offensive rebounds. You wish you could have hit a 3, or you wish you would have hit his free throws or put one back. But it's third or fourth game that we probably would have won if our bench guys hadn't brought that little bit of like a hustle. Leor was out again 2 games in a row. And we talked about in the SEC preview, my prediction was that his role would be diminished to 0, probably around this time of the season, maybe a little later, honestly, is what I was thinking. But he's been injured or something. This is the kind of game that he might have thrived in, playing defense, and he might have hit a 3 or 2 that would have sparked us, honestly. Yeah. He's shooting 50% from 3. So I wish he'd been back in. I'm afraid that whenever he does get healthy again, it's just done for him. But
it seems that way for him and Chris Moore, unless somebody gets hurt or the rotation.
If Chris Moore wasn't going to play this game, when Flanagan was playing so bad, I don't think I hope he sticks around and keeps getting better in practice.
Yeah, I do too. I thought Wendell, I know you said besides Wendell in your pregame notes, but Wendell changed the game in the first half when he came in. I mean, we just settled in on offense as well as we could in this game. It was way better than the first unit was. And you mentioned a trend of kind of sometimes that starting group, just the only guy Bruce left in after that first time out in the first half was KD. Everybody else was out. You're like, nope, you're done. Jabari, you're playing back.
You love the bench guys are pushing these starters. And I think it's making this team way better than they ever would have been before. You can't take off in this game. There's a lot of starters, I think, especially on maybe our rival Alabama's team, that come into these crappy games and lose to Georgia because they don't push early and they have no one behind them to push them. They can't take these guys out, because the guy behind them is so much worse that even their best game can't keep up or whatever.
Shout out to UGA getting their first conference win tonight.
We talked about in the SEC preview that Georgia shouldn't beat an entire team all SEC, and Alabama lost. So I hope we don't lose to them later. So that laughing helps, but man, they're bad and Alabama's worse. But so here's my next note, and I want a resounding yes or no. together at the same time when I say this one. All right. This is my last note. Can KD continue his upward trend? Yes. The Zoom muted you a little bit on that one, but yes, holy crap. We've talked enough about KD already. We can make a KD podcast, but that was a astute note. He's going like this. So much fun to watch. Here's Matt's. Will the defensive intensity and effort be there early at Missouri, unlike the trip to Ole Miss?
Well, thank goodness we figured out some things quicker. We adjusted quicker. We got our rotations tighter after that first 4-minute stretch, I would say. So in that sense, yes. But again, we just keep digging ourselves out of this hole. Like, that's the worst thing you can do, is go down 10 on the road when you're the number one team and give this building and this team that's 8-10 confidence that they can go beat you. That Ole Miss team is struggling since we played them, and they kicked our tails in that first half. So it can really happen anywhere. And if you don't believe, I mean, hopefully by now everybody understands this a little better with college basketball, but like in the SEC, the way it is right now, besides Georgia, maybe, and you saw that tonight, maybe to Alabama, you better bring it, or you can get exposed real quick.
We don't, our next away game, we play Oklahoma at home, then Alabama at home. Next away game is
Athens.
2 Saturdays from now in Athens at Georgia. Perfect time to get it together. We cannot keep going on the road and going down by 10 if we want to win. Ole Miss, Missouri, they're not good teams for the most part. We can go down 10 or 15 and still win against them. And we're not like everybody keeps wanting to compare us to the Final Four team. I'm kind of tired of comparing us to the Final Four team. I don't want to hear about it anymore, honestly. But that team could go down by a ton, and you knew they would come back every time because they had the 3-point shooting. They were very exciting offense. This team's not quite built like this. We have some 3-point shooters. We got Wino, we got KD, we got Jabari. We can shoot 3 things like that. But it's not built to constantly be coming back from these huge deficits. UGA game, I want to circle that and say, if we're still going down 10 points early in Athens, we got some issues. It's going to be an issue at some other time. We're going to lose, maybe not UGA, but it might be at a worse time. Honestly, if we don't correct it by then, it might be a worse time in March or something that we lose that.
Let me ask you this, because in my mind, they're kind of two separate things. I'm curious your opinion on it. Is there a difference in your mind going on the road for a true road game and playing like neutral site tournament, like the preseason tournament and the SEC tournament? I view those as kind of, they're still away. We don't have the Auburn Arena atmosphere, but do you see those as different, or do you see some of the same concerns you have in these games applying to some of those neutral sites?
I think, a big one is shooting away and shooting neutral are both bad for the most part, or at least a team that doesn't shoot good away also probably shoots bad neutral. It's just not being used to the same rims, not being used to the same background behind it. Sure, there's a certain amount of like fan interaction that can be an issue with runs and things like that, but it seems to be that's like the equivalent or whatever. So I am worried that could be a thing. It's partly also the other way around, where when you're away, that team's used to their rims, used to their stuff. And so when you go neutral, it should hopefully neutralize it. I didn't mean to do that, but I still think it could be an issue. We love our crowd, and we don't want to have to rely that's like, thank God for teams that are not as good as this team. Like that crowd's going to win us a game or two that we don't deserve. We can't rely on it when we're this good of a team, So I think.
Well, yeah, I totally agree with you. I think the nice thing with neutral site games is both teams are kind of dealing with that. And I know you didn't like it, but Bruce, our team has already played at the SEC tournament site in a game this year, playing USF down there. So
I like it now that we won.
Well, yeah, I do. I just think, and I think we're wise to point out the struggles, but we're undefeated on the road in true road games. So it's nice to be learning some of these lessons. Hopefully,
can we say it again? Never done a loss podcast, undefeated in regulation, no losses away, no losses at home.
We love it. We don't know what to do with it. I was mentally preparing in the second half.
How many times have we done that? How many times have we both mentally prepared for the loss podcast?
We're keeping this thing rolling.
We'll make t-shirts if we keep going.
What are my notes?
Your next one's very astute. So we might put this on Twitter. I think we're getting some traction on Twitter, but this is all on Instagram. And I think if you have listened to the show, you see how astute some of these notes are sometime, not to, ring our own bell or whatever. But your second one was, can Auburn win the rebounding battle against a physical Missouri team?
Yeah. And I just think you saw it the way they played, right? I mean, they were just a good, tough, aggressive team. I thought they brought the fight to us. I was more disappointed at times in our lack of fight in the first 10 minutes of this game than I was defensive energy and execution. I just thought they punked us in a lot of ways. And KD was probably the biggest part to shifting that in the first half, and then obviously finishing the deal at the end. So
KD never gets punked. KD pumps everybody.
And I mean, to win rebounding and to offensive rebound that relentlessly when you are not making, I mean, you can argue, well, you're missing shots, so you might as well go for the offensive rebounds, but it's not that simple. Like, you don't see this hardly ever in basketball.
You usually just lose if you shoot this bad.
Yes.
Usually give those up as defensive rebounds and you just lose. Yeah.
Exactly.
Your next one, your last one is Auburn shot great percentages in both games at home last week. Can they avoid a cold shooting game night on the road?
So you called me astute for the second one. I'll apologize for the jinx on the third. Really bad shooting. And I do just want to, again, point out, I thought Missouri did a great job challenging our shots. They made Jabari uncomfortable in his jump shots, and he struggles to drive. I think that's the book on him right now. He's got to prove that he can go by people, get to the rim, and get fouled or make a shot. And he's going to have that. I'm not worried about it. But the more he hits,
I'm worried it won't happen while he's in an Auburn jersey.
Well, that's fair, but we've seen enough. I think he can. I just think he's still.
We're getting a little like it's getting to be a point where you're not working on things anymore. You're just going to what works. You know,
not when you're that piece of clay that is Jabari Smith. I think you can see him get.
He's trying. You could tell. I think you could tell this game they tried to get him to work it down low some more, especially when he wasn't hitting his jump shots. You know, I think this is not the first time. I think he's been doing it for weeks now. They try to work the ball to him down low, but it's just not.
Just think off the top of your head watching this game. How many just wide open shots did we have? I mean,
not a lot.
Not many. I thought Missouri did a terrific job of making us uncomfortable. So it's part them and then partially us. We missed a lot of easy ones or ones that rimmed in and out, like you talked about, road stuff, some bad calls.
Some of that is some of our players are not always hunting for the open shot. I feel like it's not like it. There's been other offense we've had issues where we just keep passing it around the 3-point line over and over again. We don't do that a lot in this offense, do we? Like, Jabari doesn't really look for an open shot necessarily. Like, if he can get an open shot in like some sort of transition game, he takes it. Thank God. You know, we've had other players in the past like Chuma that didn't take shots when he was supposed to. Jabari takes when he's supposed to. But like a lot of times Jabari gets the ball and he's like, I don't care if this is an open shot or not. I'm going to do and at this point, we're cool with it. Mm-hmm. KD's the same way. At this point, we're just like, all right, he's going to do that. Wendell's open shot is like an NBA logo. No one's giving Wendell a shot at 3-point line. His only 3-point shots that are even close to open are from beyond the arch, you know, and he's going to drive past otherwise. So there's not a lot of open shots to be had, honestly.
Well, you got to create them though. I mean, like to me, a telling stat we haven't talked about, Auburn had 8 assists this whole game. And again, you only get assists when you make a shot, but I just think that's a telling sign that we were not necessarily as free-flowing offensively and sharing the ball as well as we could. And perhaps for Bruce, maybe not as good of a play calling night for him in terms of dialing certain things up and getting guys free.
There was a time where I wish he would have taken a timeout to get our offense together. I texted and everything. I was just like, this offense looks awful. We don't know what we're doing. Let's draw. Like usually with Bruce, you don't want to draw something up. He's not like, Bruce has he's an amazing coach, amazing in so many aspects of coaching. Like actual set offensives, he does not do that many of them. We don't think about that as very often, like what he's drawing up necessarily. That's not his like thing necessarily. But man, when it was going that bad in transition, I was ready for him to draw something up. And he did at one point draw that lob up that worked out really well.
Out of a timeout. Yeah. You're right, but you're living in an alternate reality. He's not going to call timeout. Just embrace it.
We're hoping we can get somebody on they could talk about it. Sonny's already put we're going to like keep up. If we can get enough interviews, we'll keep up with who decides what. Sonny says no heat check timeouts. And Sonny's the man. So he's getting a banner up.
Yeah.
We've done pregame notes, so we can go through some players real quick. We talked about it already a little bit, but super quiet double-double from Walker Kessler. I think that 7 offensive rebounds really put him over the edge there, but we were surprised he had 13 points. He just keeps being efficient, good defense. Didn't get in foul trouble on the road. Yeah. He's still the man, you know.
Another 30-minute night. I mean, he continues to amaze me that he's playing 30 minutes a game. And I'm sure Cardwell hates it. I'm sure Jaylen Williams hates it. But it's just he's so good and he is so versatile. I can't express how cool it is to have a big guy that large, 7'1", with that wingspan that you don't have to worry about a mismatch. Like you said, he can guard a guard. He can go out on the perimeter. He can block threes. He can block shots at the rim. He can rebound way better. His hands are good. He's now adding some offense around that. He's hitting his free throws. So a lot of games he's been 3 for 4 at the line, which is great. He was like 50% early in the year.
He didn't get the foul calls he deserves sometimes. There's every game there's a foul or two that he doesn't get called because he's too big to get a foul call, apparently.
He's true. How many blocks did he? I didn't remember a ton of blocks.
He got 2 blocks. He does so much that doesn't make the stat sheet.
Right.
Luckily he's done enough now on the stat sheet that UNC fans or whoever wants to doubt Walker Kessler, when you're second in the nation in blocks and had several big games of points like he did in big moments like he did against Kentucky, that people have just shut up about anything about Walker Kessler. But if you watch the game, you know how much of the game he really impacts, which is way more than his stat sheet.
Yep.
The next one is we've talked about it already a little bit. I hope we never see it again. This bad of a game from Jabari. Things just weren't going in. Shots didn't look that bad. He was fine. He didn't turn the ball over that bad like he did in the Kentucky game on that weird one. 0 turnovers. Yeah. I don't know why it went so badly, why they didn't go. Sometimes it just happens. It's weird for a guy like this that we thought was kind of past that. Freshman 5-star like this, you kind of maybe expect something like that earlier in the season. At this point, he impressed us so much. I was surprised that this was still a thing for him, that he could have a game like this. I mean, even in the South Carolina game that he struggled in, he still got 10 points. This game, he went 1 of 7 from 3, 2 of 15. We told him to shoot. We wanted him to shoot. It just never went in the way. And he's not alone, obviously. The rest of the team also really struggled putting things in. So you just hope you don't see it again. He still got 10 rebounds. He still played great defense, and that's the sign of a great player, that even though he didn't have his offensive night, he still helped win the game in other ways.
10 rebounds. And a lot of those were big defensive rebounds and good, like you mentioned, his post defense. He impacts the game in so many ways, and it's a sign of a great player. He did have the worst shooting percentage on the team, but I think you should be encouraged, right? He got the most shots on the team. Like on the road, nothing was going well. We got him the ball. We drew up some stuff for him. He, the biggest stat for me, he didn't get to the line. And in the NBA next year, when he goes, like, that's a sign. If you pay attention to the NBA, it's how many free throw attempts do you get a game? That shows how aggressive you're being. Are you going to the basket? Are you keeping defense off balance? And that's the part he kind of has to add. He didn't get any shooters love going to the free throw line because they can just get the feel calmly in the away stadium. He never got that opportunity. He never earned that opportunity. And you can always have a game like this. I just want to say, like, I don't think this is a freshman thing. That's basketball. I mean, it really does happen sometimes. Maybe you wouldn't think to a guy that pure, his jumper is just so good. And it's really a testament to how good he is that we would look at a game like this and be like, wow, like, how did this happen? Like, it's so incredible.
What a great point, though. You know what it is? The greats that usually score this much every night or so smooth or whatever, when they have a really bad off night, they start driving the ball and they get to the free throw line. It's the same thing when the whole team is having issues. You say, drive the ball. We'll get a foul call. We'll get an offensive rebound, whatever. Just drive the ball. Jabari doesn't have the game right now. He's shown it a couple times, little glimpses. We still think it can be there. I hope they're still working on it. I think the way Bruce talks, it sounds like Bruce is down to lose another game or two, if that means we get better. I don't think he's trying to luckily the rest of the SEC is cooperating with that same statement. They're giving us a little cushion for us to do that so we can actually work on ourselves at the same time. Keeps talking about get better while winning. So I think he's down. I think this game is going to be another kick in the butt we might have needed after getting our heads a little big after Kentucky maybe. But yeah, Jabari, that might be something they point out to him. He's clearly what another great thing from Bruce, man. I can't stand the haters from the outside because he keeps recruiting these players. They're not only great, they're just great kids too. A lot of these stars like this, the 5-star one and done types, on a night like this would have just hung his head and said, y'all figure it out. I'm having a bad night, whatever. I'm like, this is not good for my draft. I don't care. He went out and play hard defense. He's going to learn from this game. He's going to take this in. The fact that this will be a lesson that they'll talk to him and say, hey, you had an off night, and that's going to happen in the NBA too. And that's going to happen in another game. And you drive the ball and get a free throw line, it'll be a big deal. And he's going to probably work all week on getting to the line so he can do this kind of thing in a different game because that's the kind of kid he is.
You just love it, man. He cares about winning. He cares about this group. This group, it's easy to love each other when you're winning, right? But I really think this group is tight-knit. he was communicating a ton with Wendell after Wendell came back from his injury. Like, he was getting guys pumped up. He did the dirty work. He got the rebounds. He went after there was a play where he was the only guy that had a chance to block a shot or defend a shot on a fast break. And he actually kind of came up a little gimpy because he just went all out trying to save it. And you love that attitude. Like you said, I mean, we can't gush enough about a guy with that talent, with that future coming up in a few months, giving his all for Auburn and this team to try to get it where we think it can go. And he's earned my respect with how he plays the game.
Next one on the list is my guy. I'm not giving up on him. He's my guy, Alan Flanagan. 2 points, 4 turnovers, 0 of 2 from 3, 1 of 6 from the field. It was bad. Was so excited for him to come back because I thought he could do some things that maybe the rest of his team couldn't. And honestly, this could have been a perfect game for him. A game where everyone's shooting badly and the odds is bad and you have to go get some tough points. He's just a step off, man. We thought he'd be back maybe by now. That the Achilles injury, maybe we hopeful thinking that you can partially tear your Achilles and come back like full strength in 6 months or whatever. I'm still hoping and praying that he can get together by March. At this point, that's kind of what I think it's starting time to be expecting. He's picking up like a charge per game at this point where he just like puts his shoulder down. And I think last season without the teared Achilles, he maybe was a step faster. These other guards just kind of, I think that's going to be the book now on him, is just get in front of him, take a charge, because he's going to do that, honestly, every game, because he's just not as fast as he thinks he is anymore, can't levitate the way he is anymore. But it's not just that. That was what I wanted out of him, was to get those hard points at the rim. But he was also took a really big leap last year in three-point shooting, to the point where there was a time this year where we weren't sure who our three-point shooter was. Sure, Wendell hit some logo stuff, KD hit some stuff, but like, who was going to be our 3 guy? And I thought to myself, well, Alan Flanagan last year had such a good three-point shot. It really was nice. Maybe he's our guy that's the go-to guy if we need a three-pointer. He has had a lot of air balls. He's had a couple of games now since he's been back where he hit air balls. He had a game at home on a Tuesday, 2 or 3, a week or so ago, where he hit 1 or 2. It was like, thank God, he finally hit 1 or 2. And since then, it just went back to the trend of he's airballing him. So I don't know what you do. I don't think you like bench him anytime soon. I think you just keep pushing for him to make it by March. But it's sad that this many games in now, post-injury, I'm texting like, hey, another possession like that, and Cambridge just having a lot of minutes.
It's not sad. Maybe, let's be it's sad for your take.
It's sad for my take. You're right. I thought that he would be a guy this season. Yeah. I thought like he was projected as a first rounder, like a late first rounder. And I thought like before this season that he was going to be a big time leader, big time shot getter on this team. Even if Jabari's like more efficient or whatever, that Alan Flanagan is going to be our guy when we need hard points. It looks like it's more like KD when we need hard points, and that's okay. We just need to like figure out what Flanagan's role is in the coming weeks and months.
We know his role. He's going to start. He's going to play as many minutes as anybody. I thought defensively, he really put on a show. He took that energy, especially from the first half of how terrible he was offensively, and just channeled it until he gave up the 3 that let them back in the game at the end. He was really dialed in. I mean, he was the best I've seen him look in terms of communicating across screens and stuff. So I was really encouraged by that. I think he's just forcing it a little bit offensively. And I think there's this thing in basketball where all the little 50-50 things don't go your way. Like some of those charges he's had have been really close. And like if they go the other way, it's a block. He goes to the free throw line. He builds that confidence. He's missing, like the air balls don't help. I just feel like I've seen a lot of loose balls that he's almost gotten, but not quite gotten. It just kind of feels like there's this intangible.
It feels like he's half step slow, right?
Maybe
a half step slower than we thought he would be from our expectations.
I just think sometimes the ball bounces weird for you for a few weeks, and I'm hoping that's part of it too. So we'll see.
Maybe we just need to go back to what my expectations for him freshman year when he came in. And like, it was like, wow, this guy's like, people talked about maybe get him to do a walk-on situation because his dad's a coach and we need these other 5 stars to come in. Wow, all right, he started a lot of the year and he got some hard points. And sure, he's not a great shooter. Oh, wow, as a guy on a team that doesn't have a lot of stars, he really can. Maybe I go back to my expectation for him as a glue guy that does tough things and by his senior year is like averaging 10 plus, like just playing very solid basketball. If I go back to that, he still has a lot of room left to meet my expectations, you know.
I'm glad he's healthy. I'm glad he's playing. I think he's still our best option at that 3 position. I think he's got that locked up unless something really significant happens. And don't forget, he won us the game in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah. We next one on the list is KD. I don't think we need to talk about more KD. We'll need a whole podcast for KD. Next one, Zep, 3 points, a couple rebounds. Nothing too crazy. He left for big gaps in this game at times, which was surprising because even then Wendell got injured for a gap, and it still feels like Zep was pretty quiet. So it's kind of strange for the other point guard to go out, and it still felt like Zep was quiet.
Yeah, it was a weird, like you mentioned the minutes being weird, right? And he started out that second half. I mentioned great like hustle, steal, hits a 3, gives us a lead. Set the tone, I thought, for the second half, does his thing. He doesn't turn the ball over. He played that 7-minute stretch before that long TV timeout. He was out, and then Wendell got hurt like pretty soon after that, and he had to jump back in, and he just kind of became a distributor, defender, did his thing, and then Wendell eventually came back, thank goodness. And, that was it for him. Once Wendell came back, Zep was out for the rest of the night.
Says a lot about Wendell. We did not think Wendell was going to be the kind of guy that we hold our breath when he leaves. And we didn't hold our breath necessarily, but
I did.
You did. It's gotten to a point where Wendell's done so many great things and really stirs the pot on offense. And sadly, and Missouri did a good job of taking Kessler's lobs away after watching Kentucky give up so many and other teams give up so many. But I just don't have a ton of confidence that Zep's out there throwing lobs up to people. I don't know if I've ever seen it. Honestly, the lobs to Cambridge and the lobs to Kessler are just all from Wendell. So like that's a big, super nice part of their offense.
That's a great point. It's a different offense when he's in. It's not the high flying Tigers. It's not, but it's fundamental. It's going to get the ball to the right place. It's just very different. And he fills his role well. He would have been fine to finish the game. But I will say, you're right. You hold your breath because Wendell, maybe we can talk about Wendell next. Like he is the guy that this offense feels most fluid with. And when he goes down and you see him grabbing a knee, and Bruce said after the game, your heart stops and you think about this season when you see him writhing in pain on the ground. And for me, it was like, oh, I need to see the replay. And I'm squeamish. I hate like bad injuries, but I had to watch to see what happened. I was like, oh, thank goodness they bumped knees. That hurts so bad, but it's not season ending. And sure enough, he was able to come back and not quite himself, but finish the game well and help us win.
We've talked about in the past that Wendell coming off the bench is perfect because there's a lot of guys that need the ball in this starting lineup. And it's good that Zep doesn't need the ball and he plays great defense and he can kind of just get the thing started and he doesn't turn the ball over and we'll get it started. But honestly, at this point, we've kind of figured out that this offense runs way better under Wendell, honestly. So, Wendell, I don't think Wendell started the season. KD, well, actually, did he start the season?
Wendell started at point guard this year.
So you wonder if there might be a time we predicted, or I did, at least in the SEC preview, that even when Flanagan come back, there was at least one more like rotation of somebody. They're still playing the same amount of minutes. Zep's playing 22. Wendell's played 22 in this game.
Wendell's playing more though. Wendell's playing more.
Ultimately, Wendell plays more. I don't know if you think about it later on that you want to start these games with Wendell. Maybe we keep going down early in these games. It's Matt shaking his head. I don't know, when you start holding your breath for Wendell to be out, you might stop evening up these minutes and you start playing Wendell 30, 32 and you start playing Zep 20 something.
We're already doing that. If you go back and look, Wendell's playing 27 to 30 a game if there's no foul trouble. No.
How many games in a row do you want to go down by though before you say, all right, maybe we should
it hasn't been that many games. I mean, it's been a few we just talked about, but this was also the team that was destroying people to start games and start halves a few weeks ago. So when you're winning, I just think, I don't think it makes a difference. And I still value Wendell coming in with fresh legs after a team like Missouri has been running around for 5 or 6 minutes already. And then he comes in and I think he's more effective that way. And I think I don't like changing it up unnecessarily, but Bruce will do it if he thinks he needs to.
For the record, I'm cool with this. I think we have found a very good rhythm. I just think it's something to watch going forward. That like if it really is that much of a difference between the offenses,
sure. I would love to see a comparison stat wise. Maybe I can find this somewhere.
He loves the stats, people. I go by the heart. the heart and the feelings, and Matt goes by the hard numbers.
I want to see points per possession with Zepp only on the floor and with Wendell only on the floor. I would be curious what that looks like.
Hey, next pack. That's your homework for the next podcast.
Who's next?
Next, we talk about Zepp. We talk about Wendell. Another efficient guy, always efficient. Jaylen Williams. Not a lot going on this game, but 3 points, 2 rebounds.
Only 11 minutes.
He had a was it 11 minutes? You said.
Yeah.
11 minutes. He had one that went in and out early that was really brutal. That kind of was like kind of my like check mark on this game of like, damn, things are just not going down. When that doesn't go down, where it looked like freaking Disney Channel in and out kind of thing, spinning around the rim. But it's a weird one because Jabari had such a bad game. Jaylen's had some games where he comes in and plays really efficiently, and like, thank God, because Jabari's in foul trouble or he's not playing as well or something. We just kept trying to shoot out of it with Jabari. And if we could go back, honestly, like we thought we could shoot out of it because it wasn't that bad. But now that we know that Jabari played so bad, I kind of like, you wonder if Jaylen could have had his bench moment. You know?
This is terrible. This is terrible podcast, people. You realize that last episode, Jackson was mad that we weren't getting Jabari shots.
But you knew in that game early on and the Bama game that Jabari wasn't going to miss. He wasn't going to miss a shot. You come into this game, he did not. He was the opposite.
You can't play the results. You can't play the results. We were in trouble on the road. If we played Jaylen 22 minutes and Jabari 18 and we lost tonight, you would have freaked out.
Right. I would have freaked out because I would have said what I thought was going to happen. I thought this was going to happen until about 2 minutes left in the game. The Jabari was going to shoot it out. He was going to eventually hit his shot. And you're right. If Jabari had played any more minutes than he did, I would have said, Jabari was going to figure it out. You can't take him out. He was going to figure it. You're right.
Yeah, but I mean, look, Jaylen does his thing. I think he's the most tragic figure in a way on this team because him playing 11 minutes is absurd in my opinion, but there's just nowhere to put him. If Kessler's that efficient and effective and Jabari is that guy, there's just not a lot of room. He's still making – I thought he was terrific in the first half in his stretch of minutes, which is when most of them were. He played a little center in the second half when Cardwell got in foul trouble. His defense was awesome. Him and Jabari guarding Kobe Brown, I know I said it earlier, was a big key to this game.
I'll shed a tear if Jaylen Williams decides to transfer after the season because he's setting up for a great senior season after Jabari leaves. And I think this has been perfect for our team, that he's been a great guy, efficient off the bench. And I like to think he realizes how special this is and realizes that he was not some big, highly recruited guy that could come in. So I hope. I'll be very sad. You never know some of these kids. You never knew Justin Powell was going to go out after concussion.
Well, he could have left. He could have left when Jabari signed.
So yeah, I hope people realize. I mean, if this was a worse team, I think you might be thinking about this stuff more. So the next one on my list is Dylan Cardwell. Not a great night. You know, he did such a great night when Kessler got in trouble against Bama. He's had 2 games in a row where he's dealt with a lot of turnovers. It says he only did 1 turnover. The 1 turnover, if this is the one he counted, was really bad where he tried to dribble into the lane, turned it over. It just was not. 3 fouls. It was not a great night for him.
Yeah, I mean, he's struggled with his hands a little bit. I think he got blocked really bad once, maybe in this game too. Maybe that's the other kind of turnover you're thinking about.
Only 7 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, Kessler's just playing so many minutes. I mean, Cardwell's going to do his thing. He did have some really good defensive possessions, but ultimately it's a forgettable night for him.
We also have next up, so that was Cardwell. There's not a lot to talk about. We have Cambridge is our last guy. I think we talked about Cambridge a good bit. You know, thank God. I love it. That's what I want to have. I texted Matt on during the thing. Great backup. You know, we've talked about Cambridge a ton. Great backup. I love him as a backup. He started so much this year, and I was hard on him while he started. As a backup, great. I do wish he had hit another 3 or put one of those up or something, or hit his free throws. But as a backup, and the expectations I have for a backup, great. Good job, man. Like
everybody, I could feel the Auburn family and community. Like he had 2 open threes and 2 front end of 1-and-1s. He had worked his tail off. He was playing great. Everybody was seeing it. And you just were rooting for him to hit that shot or hit that free throw.
It was a time where I was going to put him in the MVP conversation. We knew we were going to pick KD, but if he had hit a couple of those free throws, if he had hit one of those threes, I would have said, he's not going to get an MVP. We have to talk about how much Cambridge hustled and how much he did in this game. And because he missed those free throws in the 3, he didn't get in the conversation. But I'm still proud of him for doing the hard stuff. That's not glamorous.
I think you're forgetting, like, before the last 2 minutes, KD wasn't exactly a slam dunk MVP. I mean, I think it would have been wide open. But
if KD hadn't done something, we were going to lose.
Anyway, well, I just again wanted to point out Wendell. Thank goodness he's okay. That was probably the scariest. And again, it wasn't scary for tonight. I wasn't worried about tonight. I'm worried about the season. Like I need Wendell at peak efficiency when we get in these big moments. He's been so good. So just glad he's okay. He was able to finish it out. Hopefully he can get healthy, before Saturday.
Well, let's talk about some SEC basketball if you want to pull that up. SEC AP poll. I mean, I think we could talk about. Post Kentucky stuff. We haven't been on since we got named number 1 in the freaking country. We knew it was coming. We talked about it in the podcast before that, though, like the Saturday before that or whatever. So we can soak it in. Can you imagine if we had come off this loss? Like, this would have sucked. Them finally, we're number 1 in the freaking country. Screw everybody that knows number 1. And then we have to lose to Missouri, and we have to like talk about this with a bunch of like weird stuff. We're number 1, guys. Soak it up. Tell your coworkers. I live up in New York. People don't know what's going on, but they do know when someone's number 1. No one cares about college basketball in January or December or November. When you're number 1, people will talk about it with you. People will point out on the street when you're wearing some Auburn. They'll yell War Eagle at you and I'll tell them, hey, I have a podcast. Listen. So that's where I'm at right now. So I'm hoping that guy yelled on the street, listen to my podcast. Let me know if you ever turned in. I know it's late in the podcast, so I doubt that guy did, but
it's awesome that we're number 1 finally. I'm glad we accomplished that for the program. Bruce has history with that. His Tennessee team that beat Calipari's Memphis team got number 1, lost to Vanderbilt the next game on the road. I know he used that. Maybe it wasn't effective. We still almost lost to Missouri, but it's great to be number 1. I think the amount of attention. I love the cover, by the way. We did the remake of the Sports Illustrated Chris Porter with Jabari on it. Marketing wise,
I thought that was real. I thought that was real for a minute. I'm still cool with it not being real, but like I love going back to the history stuff.
I did too. It was legit. Like every Auburn fan I know on Instagram reposted it to their
social media team. If anybody from the social media team, anybody from the War Eagle Productions team, which we love your videos, by the way, after the game, War Eagle Production. If anybody that's on the team wants to come on the podcast, we'd love to hear how you put those together. After that Kentucky game, after the Bama game, the little mini documentaries that are 3 or 4 minutes long are just chef's kiss. I get goosebumps watching them.
I thought you made a great point. There were still people reacting that this weekend was so. I tweeted that it was so peacock emoji. It was from the Pearlville to the alumni supporting the students to the chaos of it to the game day feel, CBS, national TV comeback win, all of it. And then you take these deep breaths and like for 3 days, as fans, we're still processing this amazing weekend. And then you're number 1. And the timeline for the team was Saturday, get done with this game that's exhausting and you survive it. And then you maybe do some film recap on what you did wrong and look ahead to Missouri on Sunday. And you leave Monday at lunch to go to Columbia, Missouri, which
we were refreshing at work. We were telling our coworkers.
I was on a roll. I was just wanting to point out, this is the longest road trip of our season. This is the longest trip we have to take in terms of flight and everything. So like, it's the longest trip. It's the short turnaround. It's number 1. It's the ultimate trap game, like you said. There were still people today obsessing over Calipari's obsessiveness over us and how that game went this afternoon when we're about to play a game. So you can't tell me that all those factors don't make this a really challenging game for our guys. It doesn't excuse, in my opinion, some of the bad play we had. It's just a factor.
Me and Matt aren't wearing pants right now. We took our shorts off. We love this victory. We've been waiting this whole time to say it, but neither me or Matt are wearing any shorts at all in this.
Marlene said tonight was a pants game, so you disobeyed. That was bad.
I'm sorry, Marlene. When you win by 1 like that with KD knocked my pants off. If you know, I'm in love with the man. He knocked my pants off.
Anyway, I mean, what do you have a 30-second take on Calipari has made? He said that we charged the court, that we took our shirts off, that
you would think that we like assaulted his wife or that we like something that we took he talks about how great a big game it was for us. The way he's whining about this game, the way he's acting, the Kentucky fan base is awful. We all know it. They're just like Alabama in that other sport. They're the worst fan base in the whole sport. Because man, come on, be cool. You're one of the best. You lose a game every once in a while. He is whining like a message board guy calling into Paul Feinbaum. It's crazy. You're a head basketball coach of a blue blood national championship team. You have a lifetime contract, and you're sitting around whining like this. And like, I'm not gonna call it lying necessarily, but they stormed the court. Where was the storming of the court? They danced like they had danced and gone nuts in the locker room after being an unranked Texas A&M. They're going to take the short, like, this dude, man, we are in his head. They say that Bruce and Calipari have a thing, that most coaches are cordial and kind of have like a brotherhood of coaches. But for some reason, Calipari and Bruce just seem to butt heads. And you know why? Because freaking Calipari is a jerk. I'm like trying not to cuss here. He's an a-hole. Calipari is awful. And Bruce is a cool dude that likes people and is like just like a dude that's like loves basketball. Like, that's why they hate it, because the other guy's awful.
But Bruce is the bad guy, Jackson. He's just such a shady person. Blah, blah. It's weird. They do go way back. They're very different. The media actually asked Bruce yesterday in his pre-Missouri press conference about some of the things Cal said about the screens. And you didn't mention two other things that I thought was hilarious. He wants the screen rule to be changed because Wheeler kept running into our big guy on perfectly legal screens. And then he's like, did you see they had $200 standing room only tickets for that Kentucky game? Like, we literally have that for Oklahoma this Saturday, and they're more expensive right now.
Let me know when that's like that with other games. Next Saturday, the Saturday before. So you're not special. You're next. I kept saying on Twitter. That's freaking true. It's also hilarious, just like the other sport, that when Auburn beats somebody, all of a sudden the big time coaches want to change the freaking rules. And the sad part, we joke about it. We meme about, oh, you lost and now you want to change the rules. The problem is some of these guys have the clout to do it. You've seen it in the other sport. You wonder if Calipari's got enough clout to change the rules because he lost the freaking game. Like, you got to go back and watch. Like, I saw the tweets, I saw the memes. Go back and watch the videos of Calipari complaining. It is really like childish, like sour grape stuff, man.
He makes a ton of excuses. He always has. He blamed, look, the Ty Washington injury was significant, but then he was like, well, we had two guys out. Wheeler played more minutes than any Auburn player in that game, even while being out. And I'm pretty sure it was a medical unsafe decision to put him back out there.
He said for player safety, we might need to get rid of blindside things. It's like, you don't want to talk about player safety, Calipari. Like, the way that guy was acting, he was concussed. And you put him back in. I thought we had moved that out of the sport like 10 years ago. I thought we had put in like neutral doctors and stuff to get that stuff out. If he was really like that, it's you that was the issue. Well,
they left the court. And to me, the thing that was scary for him, for the player's sake, was, and I've said 300 times, Wheeler was terrific in that game. He was awesome. So I'm sure he wanted to come back and play. But the way he went down on the second one, that wasn't even a hit. Like, that's when I was worried for him, because I'm like, that's a weird reaction. I don't think he was selling it. I think it actually, he still had some. You say
that. I'll take the Homer side of this. He flopped on both of them, and he knocked himself out on the flop on the first one. He knocked himself out on the flop on the second one. He's reared his head back like he got hit by a freaking Mack truck. So, he was the one initiating contact.
Okay, the second, my opinion, I haven't heard this said much, so maybe I'm in the minority here. The second one, to me, shows how bad the first one was. I think he was concussed, and he came back.
I know, yeah. I brought it up online for your side. I think the second one might have been a charge even. So maybe I'm just being a big-time homer.
It's a no call. They shouldn't have called it. It was a terrible call.
You tell me if that Zep in front in the same position and gets knocked down and slides back, that it might not be 50-50 charge?
It's a no call. You let it go, and there was no major contact. What caused Kessler's just standing there, and Cal is so infuriating. And I get he was frustrated they were going to lose the game or whatever, but he wanted the refs to check that second Kessler play for a flagrant foul. I'm like, he just stood there. Your guy just ran into him and fell down like he died because he's concussed and shouldn't be playing. Like, that's ridiculous.
Screw Calipari, man.
All right,
I don't want to play him again because I think they can be good.
Yes.
But the more he talks crap, the more I do want to play him again. He's changing the narrative. You don't want to play a team again usually because it's harder to be a team a second time. The motivation is just even in that little bit different. If Calipari keeps talking crap like that, the motivation is going to be the other way around. It's going to be us that's the one that wants to attack.
Maybe he's just been in Kentucky too long. They have that attitude of like, you should be fortunate to like. I can't like. It's this
He
arrogant.
drank his own Kool-Aid enough times.
Yeah, and Kentucky in general, Sheboy after the game, they're like, we think we're way better than them. Like they and I get you're kind of gonna say that.
I mean, maybe we're new to the college basketball and we don't play Duke and North Carolina every year or Kansas. I don't feel like Mike K and Roy Williams act like this. I feel like most people respect, even people that don't like them, respect them. Calipari asked like a whole other, and then that had in that I noticed his son was on the sideline again. How did he get back on the sideline? If y'all haven't seen Calipari's son, oh my God, look him up. He's such a freaking douche on the sideline. The outfits he wears on the sideline. He's wearing another turtleneck with a chain again, like he always fucking does. He always freaking does. So y'all go check out pictures of Calipari's son. It's ridiculous. I guess he's an assistant GA or something now.
Did he take Tony Barbie's place on the coaching staff?
Yeah, probably. Tony Barbie goes up there and loses all his games at Northern Michigan or wherever he's at. So Calipari's
that's enough on Kentucky. I don't even want to focus on him. It's been the story though. I mean, like the focus of the fan base and Calipari has done it to himself, has kind of still been on that game. And by the way, they blew at least 14-point lead tonight and went to overtime with Mississippi State. They did win in overtime at home.
That was in Rupp too. I'm surprised you're right. Last time I checked, they were down a good bit. So dang, I was hoping they would, with Ty still out and them reeling from Auburn, they might get another little cushion or whatever.
Almost happened.
I interrupted Matt earlier. I'm always bad about interrupting Matt. Sorry. If you're a Matt Stanner, I'm always interrupting Matt. Sorry. But he was talking about how some of the crazy of this game, when they were taking off on their flight to leave for Columbus, Missouri, we were just now getting into the office for us like workers and like gloating with our co-workers. We were getting excited for the AP poll. They were already heading to Columbus, Missouri and having to change and get ready for like watching film on the flight. Can you imagine? I'm sure they were all checking their Twitters and checking whatever to see what Calipari was saying, to see what the AP was saying. We hadn't even basked in the glory at all yet. We hadn't seen our co-workers yet. We hadn't it's that quick, you know? So good job on pulling out a win tonight, but you know why they were down the way they were probably. So
we love it as fans. I mean, the basketball season is just boom. It's great when you have a good team like this. You want to see them play, but don't take for granted the amount of work and attention to detail. The matchups are so important in this sport. I think that's something people who are new to it kind of maybe underestimate. Like there's a different scout. There's a different opponent plan every game, and the assistant coaches are putting those together weeks in advance, and the kids have to internalize that and process that before each game to know hey, this is how we're going to guard certain ball screens. This is the kind of offense we're going to run against. This what they do. There's so much that goes into it that I think people maybe don't fully appreciate.
Let's look down some of these SEC games here. We talked about a little cushion. I wish Kentucky would have. Oh man, if they could have lost Mississippi State, we would have been counting our chickens, I think. And
you never count the chickens when you're me, but
yeah. Kentucky was still out. Ty. He's out for another. We'll see how long he's day to day. But they went to overtime in Mississippi State, which is I wish I'd tuned in for that. The other big one tonight. So there's 3 games. It looks like tonight. Hit that full schedule and make sure there wasn't any.
That's all tonight.
Looks like there's 3 tonight. The other big one was a lot of fun, and I missed the first 2 or 3 possessions of the game because I was still watching it. The UGA Bama game. Bama goes down in Athens. UGA is awful. They've won 5 games all year with all their out of conference games and everything. They lost to Gardner Webb at home, I believe. They beat Alabama. Alabama just cannot seem to get up for these games. It's just bad coaching. Their star players can't seem to get up for it. JD Davidson, you talked about, you texted me that JD Davidson and their other guy got benched at times because they were just not playing well. Honestly, JD, I was telling this, Nate Oates is going to screw it up enough that JD Davis is going to have to come back for another year and transfer somewhere. Maybe he transfers to Auburn. We'll see, because he missed out on the developing from the P. They have. I just feel like Bruce is a point guard whisperer at this point. He's whispered into so many good point guards and turned these guys into great players. I really, really believe if JD Davidson had come to Auburn, he'd be way better off than he is at Alabama right now, that he would have been a guy on a national championship style team.
Hard to argue with you. He got benched at one point because he made some terrible decisions, and then he got put back in, and they benched Quinterly, who is supposed to be SEC Player of the Year material. Alabama's got a lot going on, and I guess you could look at this as a positive or negative, but Alabama's next 3 games are Baylor in the Big 12 SEC Challenge this Saturday, at Auburn, and Kentucky. So
we'll see if they're still planning their little cosplay camp out to try to act like us by this Baylor game. I have a feeling Mr. Sequence Jacket is going to say, oh, it's a little too cold. We're not going to make this camp out.
And look, it's a great line, by the way. I just, for Alabama, their season in a lot of ways hinges on, they've shown they can beat Gonzaga and Houston. They've had some big wins, but that was a long time ago at this point. And if they were to lose to Bama or to Baylor, Auburn on the road, and Kentucky, they will be 13-10 and 4-6 in the SEC. Like, that's bubble. I mean, that's lucky if you're on the bubble, probably. So they need some big wins, and that makes it dangerous for us, though. If we're number one next week when we play them, they're going to be coming guns a-blazing to try to get their season back on track.
Bama's coming no matter what. I don't think there's a single ounce going to be left in Bama. There's never going to be a time that they're not coming full guns blazing at this point, when we're good, at least,
Okay.
So we'll see. It's going to be at home. I'm hoping this will be a homecoming for us, and I don't think we're going to have to worry about if we get up for it or not. This Oklahoma one's actually a little more scary for me. They've had some tight games against some Big 12 opponents, and we might be not overlooking them necessarily,
right.
But it could be, oh, it's at home, we're gonna go ham on them, kind of thing. I'm hoping this game, though, I think this Missouri game might kick some tail from Missouri from Bruce's standpoint on future games.
Yeah. Just kind of give her a little quick recap on the standings. So Auburn's 8-0 going into this kind of non-conference game, get a little break from conference play at least. So we've locked in 8 in a row, 10 to go in the regular season. So we're almost halfway to a conference championship. That's definitely out in front of us now. Kentucky, like you mentioned, almost fell 3 games behind, but survived. They're 2 games back at 6-2. A&M has to go to LSU tomorrow.
Xavier Pinson back. You heard anything about that?
I don't know.
That's a big deal for LSU if Xavier Pinson's playing or not. So
LSU's 3-4, A&M's 4-2. So if A&M loses, they fall back 3 games behind us. Another interesting game. Arkansas plays at Ole Miss tomorrow.
Supposedly, Will Wade said yesterday that LSU could be without Xavier Pinson and Darius Days for A&M. So A&M might get another easy win there.
Maybe. A&M's hard to figure out. They're scrappy. They're a good, tough team.
They've had a decent schedule. They've lost all the games they should have, honestly. In this LSU game, they might get some benefit. But without Darius Days and Xavier Pinson, the LSU game, the LSU team already was awful on offense, and their defense is what was keeping them in every game, making them look good. If they're without those 2 players, that's not even that great of a win, really. Just like when Bama beat LSU at home without Xavier Pinson, just like when Bama beat Tennessee without their 2 best players. Like, it's tough to see that down the stretch if you're not really paying attention, but I think they're saying that even without a great game, without being a great team, could beat them.
The 2 teams, LSU and Alabama, are kind of descending, and we love to see it. The 2 teams kind of ascending. Arkansas and Tennessee are up to 4-3. Arkansas plays at Ole Miss tomorrow. Tennessee hosts Florida. So if they kind of take care of business in those 2, they'll be 5-3, 3 games back in probably 3rd place. Behind Auburn and Kentucky. So I still think Arkansas and Tennessee, 3 games sounds like a lot. It's not, especially when we still have to go to both of those places later in the season. So those are 2 teams I'm kind of keeping an eye on.
I wish Texas A&M and Kentucky lose one more. That 3-game cushion at this point in the season would have seemed freaking huge. Oh, yeah. I mean, if we're looking at the schedule there, I would say expect maybe at if you're going to average or whatever, 2 more losses, away somewhere, maybe at Tennessee or at Arkansas or something. Maybe we drop a weird one at home or something. So having a 3-game cushion would be great. Even by our most average statement, we could, even if we do worse than we thought, some injury happens and we lose 3 instead, we're still tied with somebody for the championship or whatever. So look out for another one. I wish Kentucky could have dropped that one. They might lose it. I don't know what their next game is if Ty's still out.
They play,
watch them.
Kentucky plays Kansas this week, and then I know they play at Alabama at home next week, I think. So
it gets weird on who to cheer for or whatever. Just keep helping all this other parity beneath us keep happening,
And the thing to keep in mind, we saw this in the Tennessee SEC regular season championship year. As dumb as it is, we do these shared titles. I guess it works out great if you're in Tennessee's position a few years ago and you lost the head-to-head in your home gym, but you still get to claim an SEC championship. If it were in that position, that's fine. But I do not want to share it with Kentucky and end up with the same record, and they get to claim an SEC title and we do too, but we beat them, but it doesn't.
They're going to be insufferable if that happens. And they you only won because it was at home and we lost Ty, blah, 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 blah.
So
it's going to be.
In a sense, your 2-game lead over them means you can lose a 1, but if you lose 1, you are they're right on your heels, and you don't want to be tied with them at the end of the year. So the 2-game lead doesn't feel, like you said, the 3-game lead would feel much better.
And I think they're a good team. And the rest of these teams, I've been ragging on Arkansas and Tennessee and Alabama and LSU for all these different reasons. So I don't have to like be cheering, hoping they beat them, because I don't expect them to.
I'm telling you, watch out for Arkansas.
Yeah, Arkansas can get together. I want to do some like shout outs and different, move on to the next stuff, talk about what we got going on. Sonny Smith is getting a banner at the Oklahoma game for the great coach he is. He's a bunch of I think I heard on their radio broadcast or something, some ridiculous amount of Hall of Fames that he's in, like 8-time Hall of Famer or something like that. We rattled them off, but we have a great episode with him from a couple weeks back. Me and Matt interviewed Sonny Smith. It's on YouTube. It's on the podcast. Go back and listen. Sure, we talk a little bit about this team, but a lot of it's just how great his career was and all these cool little tidbits about his time at Auburn, even his stuff about being on the radio. Just such a charming guy. You'd love to listen to him on the radio. He wasn't on the radio tonight, but you'd love listening to him there. So if you love listening to his little tidbits on the radio, you're going to love hearing 2 hours of him with all those tidbits and all those cool stories. So check it out. It's like one of our most listened to podcasts on YouTube's already, but if you're getting excited to hear that, we had a great time with it.
Oh yeah, and we've had a blast, man. I think looking back, obviously this team's been awesome and the season's been great. We haven't had to do a Lost podcast, but getting to talk to Pablo and Auburn Twitter and Marlene and her connection and Sonny, obviously for us as lifelong Auburn fans, is a big deal. So we hope you guys kind of enjoy some of that content. I just wanted to shout out our Pearlville documentary of the videos that our student correspondent did, Matthew Plexico. Thanks again, Matt. That was awesome. We really appreciate what you did for us. We put all that together in a podcast that went up on Monday morning. So a lot of you have probably already listened to that. If you haven't, I kind of do an intro. It's not a game podcast, but it gives you kind of some firsthand stuff. And then also, I thought he did a terrific job on our interview with him after the Kentucky game when he was back at home, kind of letting everything sink in. He did a terrific job. So listen to that if you want kind of the student perspective on everything that happened last weekend.
Shout out to both Matts, Matt Plexico for doing all that and doing the student correspondence, and then Matt Donaldson, on my co-host, for editing it. He did a great job putting all the edits together. Matt Plexico had joined our Zoom in the middle of the Kentucky meeting, and then Matt so flawlessly edited it that when I was looking for the edit while listening to it back, I could not figure out where the edit was. So good job. Little shout out to my co-host.
Thanks, man.
Some other shout outs to just people interacting with us. I looked at the reviews on the podcast. No new ones this week. Get on there, give us another 5-star, give us a review. We love to shout it out. It's a big deal for us. Jay Lowry on Instagram has been chatting with me on some stuff. He said last week, talk about Kessler's physicality. Great job from Kessler. When Snogo backed him down in that UConn game, we weren't sure it was going to work out. He held his own against whoever that guy is from Florida. He held his own against Colin. I knew it wasn't some C's in there. Held his own against Sheboygan at Kentucky. Gotten way more physical. Love it. You think another year in the weight program, he might come out ripped. You never know who comes out ripped out of that program. We won't probably get him another time. He's playing so well. He'll probably move on. But so Jay want to talk about that. He also tonight said KD for MVP. We agree, Jay. Everyone hit us up on Instagram and other places. If you can get in before we're done recording who you think MVP is, I'll shout it out on here. I'm sure, Matt, did your dad text us about his MVP?
No, I have another one. I have a student, Lyndon Palmer. I used to work with him and his family. Another job I had here. He texted me, KD, obvious MVP, like right after the game. So people who listen to the pod are starting to put their insight. We love it. We'll keep it coming.
And the last shout out to my Uncle Joe O'Neill. I was talking to my mom, and she said, Uncle Joe listens to your podcast every time. Shout out, Uncle Joe. Love you. Hopefully I'll see you soon when this whole pandemic stuff's over. We'll hang out, and I'll come down there and hang out on your land down there.
I love it, man. We're thrilled. We're thrilled not to have done a Lost podcast yet. I want to make sure I get this right. I was going to pull up. Yeah, man. Just sometimes you have to look at the big picture. Auburn is 19-1. We're almost to 20 wins already, not even at the halfway point of the SEC schedule, which 20 wins in college basketball is a big deal.
I don't even dream about this kind of stuff. This is so unrealistic, like to be 19-1 at this point, that I didn't even dream these scenarios up. If we had the day we started our podcast, if I dreamt to myself like how well the podcast would do, how well this team would do, I wouldn't have even allowed myself to like think up this scenario. I would have thought, you don't think that unrealistically or whatever. 19-1, man, never done a lost podcast, never lost a regulation, never lost at home, never lost away.
Love it. Love it. I mean, the reasons, if you're a fan and you were frustrated by this game tonight, I just want to put it in perspective. This loss would have been terrible for our numbers, like the net rankings and KenPom, all these things you hear people talk about, which we'll get a lot more into as we get closer to March. It's huge to avoid a bad loss. So we did that. The other reason, if you care as much about the SEC championship as I do, that's my number one goal every year in anything we do compete in. We are in tremendous position, like Jackson mentioned, huge to not give away a game on this kind of game. Like, it's massive to just survive it and get out. And I just wanted to say my closing kind of piece. Somebody posted a video of Bruce talking to students when you were still there when he first arrived. And honestly, it was kind of surreal looking back, watching how he talked to the students and the process of, hey, we're going to teach you how to cheer and be loud and create the most raucous environment in the country. Like, we're going to walk with you through it. We're going to be there. Here's KT Harrell, and you need to know about him, and he's a great player. All these things. And it's crazy. I know everyone is like in this state of appreciating it, but just, it's so cool. Like, my dream when Bruce was hired, I thought extremely highly of him. I was thrilled we got him, but it was like, hey, maybe we'll like compete for the tournament every year to get in. Like, that was my vision of how great this could be. And to see this 5-year run with all these accomplishments and how this year's team is just taken off like it has, it's just so cool, man. This has been so fun for us.
You got to think of the ego of Bruce Pearl, that it was like the fact that he could be number one at Tennessee and beat Memphis and have the crowd in his hands and have built this program to the point where, like, honestly, if he had never had to be forced at Tennessee, he could be like the next Duke at this point. He could be where Gonzaga is at this point if he had never been forced at Tennessee. For him to take that lump and come into Auburn and teach our fan base how to be basketball fans and be the kind of guy that's cool with that, the kind of guy that spent so much of his free time. He just paid millions of dollars. The dude's the like head CEO of this big time program, or like before that, like any other company where that side, like, you're not going into the people and doing this kind of things. Or he was the perfect hire. I was there when he got off the plane and like gave us a speech and jumped up and down with them. I was there at his first press conference. I have a little signed like piece of board because he stood at his press conference right where the student section people come out right now. He stood there and took pictures and autographed every single person that came to his press conference. It was amazing. And like at the time, I guess I felt like, yeah, he should want to engage everybody. That's what a great coach that wants to market spring win. Now that I think about like bigger picture, so many coaches in America would think they're way above all this stuff. Tony Barbie came in and thought he was above all of it immediately. Bruce came in with a 1,000 times better resume and thought to himself, I'm going to engage with these people. I'm going to get in the dirt and convince these people why they should want to cheer for me, when he could have come in and said, they got lucky that I was down and out and that they deserve, like,
and
amazing,
that's
amazing.
And that's the thing people don't get nationally. Auburn Arena was selling out before Auburn won anything. And the only reason that started happening was because of all the work Bruce did, laying the groundwork, building the interest. He wasn't too good to go to any frat or any campus event to get people interested. And like in the community, he's very visible. He's out there. And I don't know, how does he be a great coach, recruit, build the program, build the infrastructure, do all that? Sure, it helps that he's done it other places, but perhaps it's best to use this quote for him too, not just KD. Swagger is hard to guard, and Bruce has it in spades from the coaching perspective. I think that's why his guys love him and play so hard for him. Even tonight wasn't great. The product wasn't great. They had to survive, couldn't make a shot. They battle, man. They battle every night, and I hope people don't take that for granted, because that is not always true in college basketball. These guys fight and scrap and battle, and they did it in other years when they weren't number one, and that's how you build a program.
Yeah. We knew we were an untapped market in basketball. No one else did, and they still don't. There's still some, we can get a different podcast, but there's still some fan bases, different schools out there that still think that Auburn's whatever. We knew we were untapped. We knew we would go nuts for this kind of stuff, and here we are. Enjoy every moment. You said the SEC championships, your like ultimate goal, and I think everyone, if you're like still listening to this point, change your perspective. You have a different one. The SEC championship should be your ultimate goal. Honestly, things in March can get so crazy and chaos. I would hate to look up and we lost somewhere in the tournament midway through and we have to like talk people off the ledge on what happened on this team. What's happening right now is college basketball. Stay in the present. We're having a good time. This is my like social life and a good time that I'm having right now. And I'm just War Eagle, man. This is what brings you in, you know?
Yeah, it's so good you said that. We'll finish up on this. Like the goals to win championships. And in basketball, you get this rare 3 times of an opportunity to win championships. We're in the longest, most difficult, in my opinion, one to win an 18-game gauntlet of SEC play. We're in a great position. That's the number one goal. If you win the SEC this year, as good as the league is, you're probably going to be a 1 seed. You're going to be the 1 seed in the SEC tournament, and you're going to play on only Friday, Saturday, Sunday if you can get that far. Like it sets everything else up. Like there's no need to worry about the rankings, the KenPom, the net, any of it. If we just take care of business and win the SEC, we're going to have every opportunity to accomplish everything. But like you said, you better appreciate, like, I don't know how many times we've won the SEC, but it's like 2 or 3 in Auburn history, I think. So yeah, it's a big deal.
1960, I believe we won one. We did it with Sonny Smith. 1960, 1985 SEC tournament victory. 1999, 2000 SEC regular season, and 2017, 18. So we've only won it 3 times in our entire history since all the way going back to 1960. We might have won it in like some weird.
And I think only 2 SEC tournament championships.
Yeah. So. One at Bruce and that time when Sonny won it. So it's enjoy the mess out of this. The real college basketball is when you're camping out with your friends. It's when you're watching on Tuesday nights with whoever, your loved ones or whatever. This is college basketball. Enjoy the mess out of it and solidify this foundation and build like with your kids or whatever, that where they're looking up in 20 years, like, yeah, we've always been about it. I grew up when I was 5 years old, I watched it with my dad or whatever. Like build it now.
And there's a ton of there's a long way to go, but I think we have embraced the peacock mindset on this podcast. We're bragging about,
baby. We peacocking, baby.
We brag about the no loss podcast and all the unbeaten things, but we're having fun. Hope you guys are enjoying it. We've had a blast doing this. And if you've listened to this entire podcast episode for 2 hours after a 55-54 Missouri game, y'all are the best. I'm shouting you out, whoever you are right now.
All right, War Eagle, Matt.
War Eagle, everybody.